The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space like a giant crystal flower. Its walls were made of clear material that sparkled with thousands of colors as starlight passed through them. The massive structure orbited the neutral world of Kepler 442b, spinning slowly as it caught the light from 3 distant suns. Inside the hall, thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered for another monthly debate. The air hummed with dozens of different languages being translated through small devices that each delegate wore. Some voices sounded like music, others like grinding metal, and a few like rushing water. Li Tay sat in the human section near the back of the hall. He was a tall man with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to notice everything around him. His hands rested quietly on a small tablet as he watched the other delegates file into their seats. The human delegation was small compared to the others. Only 12 people representing all of Earth and its colonies. The Altarian section took up nearly a quarter of the hall. Commander Veltar stood at the front of their group, his 4 arms moving gracefully as he spoke to his fellow delegates. His body looked like a giant praying mantis covered in golden scales that caught the light. His large compound eyes could see in directions that would make humans dizzy. Across the hall, the Rigelian delegates floated in special containers filled with glowing gas. Dr. Nixala was the brightest among them, her energy form pulsing with blue and white light as she communicated with others through electromagnetic waves. The translation devices worked hard to turn her electrical patterns into words that other species could understand. Near the center of the hall, Ambassador Cortex sat with his crystalline people. His body looked like it was carved from purple, diamond, with faceted surfaces that reflected light in beautiful patterns. When he moved, tiny chimes could be heard as different parts of his crystal structure vibrated against each other. The hall itself was a wonder of galactic engineering. The ceiling showed a real-time view of the stars outside, while the floor displayed information about whatever topic was being discussed. Comfortable seats had been designed for dozens of different body types, from the tiny Pixian delegates who sat in chairs no bigger than human hands, to the massive Goliath representatives whose stone bodies required reinforced platforms. Li Tay had been coming to these debates for 3 years now, ever since he was appointed as Earth's lead ambassador. Before that, he had been a Marine, then a scientist studying alien life forms. He understood that humans were still the new kids in galactic politics. Most species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. The monthly debates covered many topics: trade agreements, territorial disputes, scientific discoveries, and planetary classifications. Today's main topic was listed on everyone's tablet: revision of Deathworld. Classification standards. Li Tay had read through all the background materials the night before, but he suspected this debate would be different from what the other delegates expected. Commander Veltar called the assembly to order with a sound that came from deep in his chest. The thousands of conversations slowly died down as delegates turned their attention to the front of the hall. The Altarian's 4 arms moved in precise patterns as he spoke, a gesture that meant formal respect in his culture. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, his voice was translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. We gather today to discuss an important matter that affects the safety and expansion of all our species. The floor of the hall changed to show a star map with hundreds of worlds marked in different colors. Green dots showed safe garden worlds where most species could live comfortably. Yellow dots marked worlds that required some technology or adaptation. Red dots showed worlds that were considered too dangerous for normal colonization. Our scientists have identified 17 new worlds that require classification, Commander Veltar continued. However, our current system may not be strict enough to protect our citizens from truly dangerous environments. Dr. Nixala's container glowed brighter as she prepared to speak. The mathematics are clear. Her electrical patterns were translated. into words. We have lost too many exploration teams and colonists to worlds we thought were safe. Our models show that we need stricter guidelines. A hologram appeared in the center of the hall, showing a dark world covered in storms. Lightning flashed constantly across its surface, and the atmosphere glowed with dangerous gases. "This is Tempest Prime," Dr. Nixala explained. "We lost contact with a Centaurian colony ship there 2 years ago. The world appeared safe by our old standards." Ambassador Korthek's crystal body chimed as he stood to speak. "My people have developed a new classification system. Any world with gravity above 1.2 times standard should be marked as dangerous. Any world with atmospheric pressure that changes by more than 15% should be restricted. Any world with more than 3 apex predator species should be quarantined." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The logic seemed sound to most delegates. Their own homeworlds were stable, predictable places where life could develop safely. The Altarian homeworld had consistent weather patterns and gentle herbivore animals. The Centaurian crystal caves provided perfect protection from any environmental changes. The Rigelian energy beings lived in the calm depths of space between stars. Li Te listened carefully as more delegates spoke in favor of the new classification system. The Aquarian delegate talked about how water worlds needed to be perfectly balanced. The volcanic peoples discussed how even they required certain limits on geological activity. Everyone seemed to agree that truly dangerous worlds could not support intelligent life. The debate continued for hours. Delegate after delegate stood to share examples of worlds that had claimed lives or defeated colonization attempts. They showed pictures of planets with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and deadly weather patterns. The message was clear. Such worlds were death traps that no thinking species could survive. Li Te looked down at his tablet. On the screen was information about Earth, his homeworld. He had seen these statistics many times before, but today they seemed different, somehow. He thought about his childhood, playing in forests filled with bears and wolves. He remembered summer storms with lightning that could kill instantly. He thought about earthquakes that could swallow buildings and hurricanes that could level entire cities. As the debate moved toward a vote, Li Te realized that none of these delegates understood what they were really discussing. They were about to classify worlds as impossible for life, but they had never met anyone who actually lived on such a place. He looked around the Great Hall at thousands of aliens who had never faced a real predator or survived a natural disaster. They came from safe worlds where the biggest danger might be a minor weather change or a herbivore that ate too many crops. Commander Veltar was preparing to call for the final vote when Li Te made his decision. Slowly, calmly, he raised his right hand. Dr. Nixala's energy form pulsed with excited light as she moved to the center of the Great Hall. Her gaseous body swirled inside the protective container, creating patterns of blue and white that looked almost like living lightning. When she activated the main holographic display, the entire assembly hall dimmed so everyone could see clearly. "Fellow delegates," her electrical voice hummed through the translation devices. "What you are about to see will change how we think about planetary safety forever." The first world appeared in the hologram, spinning slowly above their heads. It was a massive planet covered in dark red clouds that swirled in violent storms. Lightning flashed constantly through the atmosphere, creating a web of electrical discharge that never stopped. "This is Kagran 7, Dr. Nixala explained. "Gravity is 2.8 times galactic standard. The atmosphere contains sulfur compounds that would dissolve most known materials in minutes. Surface temperature varies from 200 degrees below freezing to 400 degrees above boiling depending on the storm patterns." The Pixian delegates, tiny beings no bigger than a human hand, chittered nervously in their miniature seats. Their homeworld was a gentle place with soft breezes and flowers that sang in harmony. The idea of living on Cogran 7 was like imagining life inside an active volcano. The hologram changed to show another world. This one looked peaceful at first glance, blue oceans and white clouds that reminded some delegates of garden worlds. They knew. But as the image focused, the reality became clear. Massive waves hundreds of meters high crashed against coastlines. The land masses were constantly changing as earthquakes split continents apart. Oceanus Prime, Dr. Nixala continued. The tectonic activity never stops. Tsunami waves can travel at 800 kilometers per hour. The ocean contains predators that are 50 meters long, with bite forces that could crush our strongest starship hulls. Ambassador. Korthek's crystal body chimed in distress as he processed the information. His people lived in stable cave systems that had not changed in millions of years. The idea of ground that moved and oceans that could swallow entire cities was beyond their understanding. More worlds appeared in the hologram. Each one seemed designed to kill anything that tried to live there. There was the ice world where blizzards could freeze organic matter in seconds. The desert world where sandstorms moved faster than most spacecraft and contained particles sharp, enough to cut through metal. The jungle world where every plant was either poisonous or carnivorous, and the animals hunted in packs with intelligence that rivaled most spacefaring species. The mathematics are undeniable. Dr. Nixala's form grew brighter as she spoke with more passion. Our computer models have analyzed over 10,000 worlds across the galaxy. The pattern is always the same. Worlds with extreme conditions cannot support the development of intelligent life. She gestured to another hologram that showed statistical charts and graphs. The data was clear and overwhelming. Every known intelligent species had evolved on worlds that met specific criteria: stable geology, predictable weather, limited predator threats, and consistent environmental conditions. Intelligence requires time and safety to develop, Dr. Nixala explained. A species cannot advance beyond basic survival if their environment is constantly trying to kill them. They cannot develop art, science, or philosophy if they are always running from predators or natural disasters. The Aquarian delegate rose from her water-filled tank, her gill slits fluttering as she spoke. Dr. Nixala speaks the truth. My people spent millions of years in the peaceful depths of our world's oceans. We had no predators, no storms, no geological instability. This allowed us to develop mathematics, engineering, and eventually space travel. Commander Veltar nodded with all four of his arms. The same for my people. Our home world has had the same climate for 20 million years. Our ancestors could focus on building civilization instead of merely surviving each day. More delegates shared similar stories. The fungal collective had grown in underground caverns where temperature never changed and food was always abundant. The gas giant dwellers floated in stable atmospheric layers where the only challenge was deciding which direction to drift. The silicon miners had evolved in asteroid belts where resources were plentiful and there were no environmental threats at all. Li Te listened to each testimony while studying his tablet. The screen showed detailed information about dozens of worlds that the Galactic Council was preparing to classify as Deathworlds. According to their new system, these planets would be marked with red warning signs and banned from colonization. The human ambassador scrolled through the data, comparing it to what he knew about his own homeworld. Gravity levels, atmospheric composition, geological activity, weather patterns, predator populations. Every measurement was carefully recorded and analyzed. Dr. Nixala activated a new hologram that showed the proposed classification system. Category 1 Deathworlds have gravity above 1.2 times standard. Category 2 have atmospheric pressure variations above 15%. Category 3 have more than 3 apex predator species. Category 4 have unstable geology. Category 5 have extreme weather patterns. She paused for effect, her energy form dimming slightly. Any world that qualifies for 3 or more categories should be classified as uninhabitable and quarantined indefinitely. Our models show that no intelligent species could possibly evolve under such conditions. The assembly hall filled with approving sounds from dozens of different species. Chirps, chimes, electrical buzzes, and harmonic tones all indicated agreement with the scientific presentation. Ambassador Cortex stood again, his crystal structure catching the light from the holograms. This system will save countless lives. No longer will exploration teams disappear on worlds that cannot support civilization. No longer will colony ships be lost to environments that no reasonable being should attempt to inhabit. Other delegates began to speak in favor of the proposal. The hive mind representatives buzzed in unison about protecting their worker drones. The plant people rustled their leaves in agreement about the need for stable soil conditions. The energy beings flickered in patterns that meant strong approval. Li Te looked around the Great Hall at thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds. Every single species represented here had evolved in what humans would consider paradise conditions. Safe, stable, predictable environments where the biggest challenge might be finding enough food or deciding which territory to claim. None of them had ever faced a real predator. None of them had survived natural disasters. None of them had evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill them every single day. As the debate continued, Li Te realized that the Galactic Council was about to make a decision based on fundamental misunderstanding. They were about to classify entire categories of worlds as impossible for intelligent life, but they had never met anyone who had actually proven them wrong. Commander Veltar called for preliminary votes from each delegation. One by one, species after species voiced their support for the new Deathworld classification system. The Altarians voted yes. The Rigelians voted yes. The Centaurians, Aquarians, Pixians, and dozens of others all agreed. When the preliminary count was finished, the result was overwhelming. 847 species voted in favor, with only 3 abstentions and no votes against. Commander Veltar raised all 4 arms for attention. The preliminary vote is clear. We will now proceed to the final vote on implementing the new Deathworld classification system. Are there any final statements before we make this decision permanent? The hall fell quiet as delegates looked around to see if anyone would speak. Most assumed the debate was over. The science was clear, the logic was sound, and the vote was unanimous. That was when Li Te slowly raised his hand. The massive assembly hall had never been so quiet. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in perfect silence as they noticed the single human hand raised in the air. The hand belonged to Li Te, and it moved slowly, deliberately, without any hurry or desperation. It was simply there, waiting patiently to be acknowledged. Commander Veltar's compound eyes focused on the human section with surprise. In all his years leading galactic debates, he had rarely seen such a dramatic shift in atmosphere. One moment, the hall had been filled with the confident chatter of delegates preparing for a unanimous vote. Now it felt like the air itself was, holding its breath. Dr. Nixala's energy form dimmed with curiosity. Her electromagnetic sensors swept across the assembly hall, measuring the sudden change in electrical patterns from thousands of nervous alien minds. The Rigelian scientist had expected this debate to be routine, present the data, explain the obvious conclusions, and vote to approve common-sense safety measures. Ambassador Cortex's crystal body stopped chiming entirely. The Centaurian had been preparing to make a closing statement about the wisdom of the new classification system. Instead, he found himself staring at the human delegation like everyone else in the hall. The human section was small compared to most others. Only 12 people represented all of Earth and its colonies. They sat in simple chairs wearing plain, dark blue uniforms that looked almost military in design. Most galactic delegates preferred elaborate ceremonial clothing or specialized environmental suits. The humans dressed like they were ready for work. Li Te himself was unremarkable by most alien standards. He was tall for a human, but average height compared to many species in the hall. His dark hair was cut short and practical. His face showed no emotion as he waited patiently for permission to speak. He held a small tablet in his other hand, but his eyes were focused on Commander Veltar. The silence stretched on for nearly a full minute. Some delegates began to whisper among themselves, wondering what the human could possibly want to add to such a clear-cut debate. The science had been presented. The logic was obvious. The vote was ready to proceed. The Pixian delegates chittered nervously in their tiny seats. Their species had never interacted much with humans, but they had heard stories. Humans were newcomers to galactic politics, only joining the Council 50 years ago. They came from somewhere in the outer spiral arm, from a system most species had never bothered to visit. The Aquarian delegate adjusted her position in her water tank, creating small ripples that caught the light. She remembered when the humans first applied for council membership. Their application had been routine, another young species that had recently developed faster-than-light travel. Nothing special or noteworthy about them. The fungal collective rustled their interconnected root networks under the floor of the assembly hall. Their shared consciousness was trying to understand why one human's raised hand had created such tension. They could sense the emotional responses of thousands of other beings, all focused on this unexpected moment. Commander Veltar finally broke the silence. His voice carried clearly through the translation systems to every corner of the Great Hall. The chair recognizes Ambassador Li Te of the Terran Federation. Li Te lowered his hand and stood up slowly. He was wearing the same dark blue uniform as the other humans, with small patches that indicated his rank and position. As he moved away from his seat and walked toward the central speaking area, his footsteps echoed in the silent hall. The walk seemed to take forever. Every delegate in the assembly watched as the human ambassador made his way down the sloped aisle toward the center platform. His movements were smooth and confident, like someone who had walked into dangerous situations before and knew how to stay calm under pressure. Dr. Nixela's energy form pulsed with impatience. She had spent months preparing her presentation about Deathworld classifications. The data was solid, the conclusions were obvious, and the vote should have been a formality. What could this human possibly add to a scientific debate about planetary safety? Li Te reached the central platform and activated its holographic systems with practiced ease. The technology responded to his touch, indicating that he had used similar systems many times before. He looked up at the thousands of delegates surrounding him in the tiered seating arrangement. "Honored delegates," Li Te began, his voice calm and steady. "I request permission to present additional data that is relevant to this classification system." His words were translated instantly into dozens of languages, but the tone remained the same in each version: respectful, professional, and completely confident. Commander Veltar's forearms moved in a gesture that indicated formal curiosity. "The chair grants permission. Please proceed, Ambassador Li Te." The human ambassador touched his tablet and looked up at the assembly. "Before we vote on this important matter, I believe the Council should examine one more world that would be affected by the new classification system." Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Some delegates wondered if the humans had discovered a new planet that needed to be categorized. Others assumed Li Te was going to present an edge case that might require special consideration. The holographic display activated above the central platform, and a world appeared that made many delegates nod with approval. It was a beautiful planet with blue oceans and white clouds swirling around green and brown continents. Sunlight reflected off ice caps at both poles, and a single large moon was visible in the background. "This is a garden world," Ambassador Korthek said approvingly, "clearly suitable for intelligent life." Other delegates agreed. Here was an example of the kind of safe, stable environment where civilization could develop properly. The world looked peaceful and welcoming, with the right colors and patterns that indicated a healthy biosphere. Dr. Nixala's energy form brightened with interest. An excellent example of a Class A garden world. This demonstrates exactly the kind of environment where intelligent species can evolve safely. Li Te nodded slowly and looked around the assembly hall. I am pleased that you approve of this world's appearance. This planet has been home to intelligent life for several 100,000 years. He paused and took a breath before continuing. This world is my home, Li Te said simply. We call it Earth. The reaction was immediate and positive. Delegates throughout the hall expressed approval with various sounds and gestures. Finally, here was a human who understood the debate properly. He was showing them his own homeworld as an example of how planets should look. The hive mind buzzed with satisfaction. The plant people rustled their leaves in harmony. The energy beings flickered in patterns that indicated agreement. Here was proof that humans came from exactly the kind of safe garden world that produced reasonable, intelligent species. Li Te stood quietly at the platform, his tablet in his hands, waiting for the approving sounds to die down. His expression remained calm and neutral, but something in his eyes suggested that the presentation was far from over. Now, he said when the hall grew quiet again, let me share some additional information about my homeworld that you might find interesting. The tone of his voice had changed slightly. It was still respectful and professional, but there was something new underneath, something that made the most perceptive delegates lean forward in their seats with sudden attention. Li Te touched his tablet, and the holographic display changed to show detailed information about Earth floating above the assembly hall. Numbers and charts appeared alongside the beautiful blue and green world that had impressed so many delegates just moments before. Let me begin with some basic statistics about my homeworld, Li Te said in the same calm voice. Earth has a gravitational force of 1.0 times galactic standard. Our planet completes one rotation every 24 standard hours and orbits our star every 365.25 local days. Delegates nodded approvingly. These seemed like reasonable numbers for a garden world. Earth's surface is 71% covered with liquid dihydrogen monoxide, Li Te continued. Our atmosphere consists of 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen, with trace amounts of other gases. We have one natural satellite that significantly affects our world's behavior. Dr. Nixala's energy form pulsed with satisfaction. Excellent parameters for supporting intelligent life, she said through her translation device. This confirms our models about suitable garden worlds. Commander Veltar gestured agreement with all four arms. Your homeworld appears to be an ideal example of the stable conditions required for civilization to develop. Li Te nodded politely and looked around the Great Hall. Now let me provide some additional context about these statistics that you might find educational. He touched his tablet again, and the holographic display began to show new information. The peaceful image of Earth was still visible, but now it was accompanied by charts and data that told a very different story. Earth's surface consists of massive plates of rock that move constantly, Li Te explained. These tectonic plates collide with each other, creating mountain ranges and causing earthquakes that can destroy entire cities in seconds. The first murmurs of concern began to ripple through the assembly. Several delegates leaned forward in their seats, wondering if they had misunderstood something. Our liquid dihydrogen monoxide oceans create weather systems with wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, Li Te continued. These storms can generate waves over 30 meters high that travel at speeds faster than most ground vehicles. Ambassador Korthek's crystal body began to chime nervously. Surely these are rare events? Not at all, Li Te replied. Major hurricanes occurred dozens of times each year. We also experience volcanic eruptions that can change global climate patterns. Our planet has undergone 5 major extinction events where over 90% of all life was eliminated by natural processes. The Pixian delegates began chittering in distress. Their tiny homeworld had never experienced anything more dangerous than a gentle rainstorm. The idea of weather that could kill thousands of beings was beyond their comprehension. Li Te activated another hologram showing Earth's geological activity. Red dots appeared across the continents indicating active, volcanic zones. Moving lines showed where tectonic plates met and regularly caused earthquakes. Our planet experiences approximately 500,000 detectable earthquakes every year, he said. Most are minor, but several thousand are strong enough to damage structures or cause landslides. Dr. Nixala's energy form flickered with confusion. But how can intelligent life develop under such unstable conditions? That is an excellent question, Li Te said, but I am not finished describing Earth's characteristics. He showed new data about Earth's magnetic field and its relationship with their star. Our sun regularly emits radiation that would sterilize most worlds. Our magnetic field protects us, but it fluctuates significantly and sometimes fails entirely, allowing deadly cosmic radiation to reach the surface. The assembly hall was growing quieter as delegates realized that Earth was not the peaceful garden world they had initially thought. Some began checking their own databases to verify the humans' claims. Earth has also experienced multiple ice ages where most of the planet becomes uninhabitable for millions of years, Li Te continued. Between ice ages, we have periods of extreme warming where sea levels rise and coastal areas are flooded. Commander Veltar's forearms moved in gestures of disbelief. Ambassador Li Te, according to your own description, your homeworld qualifies for several categories of our Deathworld classification system. According to your classification system, Li Te said, consulting his tablet, Earth would qualify for Category 4 due to geological instability, Category 5 due to extreme weather patterns, and several other categories we have not yet discussed. The Aquarian delegate emerged partially from her water tank. But this is impossible. You are clearly an intelligent species with advanced technology. How could you have evolved on such a dangerous world? Li Te smiled for the first time during his presentation. That is exactly the right question to ask. But before I answer it, let me share some information about Earth's biological characteristics. He activated a new set of holograms showing Earth's animal life. The images started with creatures that looked harmless enough, small furry animals and colorful birds, that many delegates found appealing. These are some of Earth's smaller predators, Li Te explained. This species, he pointed to an image of a house cat, kills over 1 billion small animals every year on our planet. They hunt for pleasure even when they have sufficient food. The hologram changed to show larger animals. Bears, wolves, lions, and sharks appeared in the display, along with data about their hunting capabilities and kill rates. Earth supports thousands of apex predator species, Li Te continued. Many hunt in coordinated groups with complex strategies. Some can run faster than our ground vehicles. Others can remain hidden until they strike without warning. The fungal. Collective's root networks rustled with distress under the assembly hall floor. Their species had never developed in the presence of predators and could not imagine evolving while being constantly hunted. Our oceans contain predators larger than most of your starships, Li Te said, showing images of whales and giant squids. Some have been measured at over 30 meters in length. Others have bite forces that could crush our strongest building materials. Dr. Nixala's energy form was now flickering rapidly with agitation. This cannot be accurate. Our models clearly show that worlds with multiple apex predators cannot support the development of intelligent life. Your models, Li Te said politely, may need to be revised. He activated one final hologram showing a simple chart with Earth's data compared to the proposed Deathworld classification system. The results were undeniable. According to your new standards, Li Te announced, Earth qualifies as a Class 12 Deathworld, the most extreme category in your proposed framework. The assembly hall erupted in shocked conversations as delegates frantically consulted their databases and verified the humans' data. Species throughout the Great Hall began talking in dozens of languages as they tried to understand how this was possible. Commander Veltar called for order, but it took several minutes for the chaos to die down. When the hall finally grew quiet, thousands of alien eyes, sensors, and optical organs focused on Li Te with a mixture of disbelief and growing fear. "This changes everything," Dr. Nixala said, her voice barely audible through the translation. "Systems." Li Te nodded calmly. "Yes," he agreed. "It does." The chaos in the assembly hall slowly died down as delegates realized they needed to hear more. Li Te stood calmly at the central platform, waiting for the thousands of conversations to end. His expression remained peaceful, as if he had just shared information about the weather rather than completely destroying the foundation of galactic understanding about habitable worlds. Commander Veltar used all four arms to gesture for silence. "Ambassador Li Te," his translated voice carried a tone of careful concern, "you have presented data that contradicts our fundamental understanding of how intelligent life develops. Please continue." Li Te nodded respectfully and touched his tablet. "I believe the Council would benefit from understanding more about how life actually functions on what you call a death world." The holographic display changed to show Earth's ecosystems in detail. Forests appeared first, looking peaceful and green from a distance. But as the image focused closer, the reality became clear. "Our forests contain predators that can weigh over 800 kilograms, Li Te explained, showing images of bears moving through dense trees. They are capable of running at 50 kilometers per hour and climbing trees faster than most beings can run, on flat ground." The Pixian delegates made high-pitched noises of distress. The largest predator on their homeworld was smaller than a human finger and only ate tiny insects. "These forests also contain pack hunters," Li Te continued, displaying images of wolves. "They coordinate their attacks using complex communication and can track prey across hundreds of kilometers using scent trails that remain effective for days." Dr. Nixala's energy form pulsed erratically. "But surely your species avoided these dangerous areas during evolution." "Not at all," Li Te replied. "Humans evolved in these environments. We lived alongside these predators for hundreds of thousands of years before developing technology." He activated new holograms showing early human settlements surrounded by dangerous wildlife. "Our ancestors learned to use tools and work together specifically because they needed to survive in a world full of creatures trying to eat them." The holographic display shifted to show Earth's oceans. Beautiful blue waters sparkled in the artificial sunlight, but the data that accompanied the images told a different story. "Our oceans contain predators with bite forces exceeding 18,000 newtons per square centimeter," Li Te said, showing images of great white sharks. "They can detect electrical fields from other living creatures and smell blood in water from distances of several kilometers." Ambassador Korthek's crystal structure chimed frantically. "How do your people travel across these waters?" "Very carefully," Li Te answered. "We developed boats, navigation systems, and eventually aircraft specifically because the oceans were so dangerous to cross." The display changed again to show more marine life. Giant squids with tentacles longer than most starships. Killer whales that hunted in coordinated pods. Jellyfish whose stings could kill in minutes. "The largest animal on our planet lives in these oceans," Li Te said, showing an image of a blue whale. "It is over 30 meters long and weighs more than most of your space stations. Even though it only eats small organisms, its size alone makes it dangerous to approach." The Aquarian delegate was now completely submerged in her water tank, only her large eyes visible above the surface. Her own homeworld's oceans contained gentle creatures that fed on minerals and algae. The idea of predatory marine life was terrifying. "Li, Tay continued his presentation with images of Earth's aerial predators. Eagles, hawks, and falcons appeared in the hologram, along with data about their hunting capabilities. Our skies are controlled by predators with perfect eyesight and flight capabilities that exceed most of our aircraft, he explained. They can spot prey from altitudes of several kilometers and dive at speeds approaching 400 kilometers per hour. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Li Tay activated a new set of images showing Earth's plant life, and many delegates relaxed slightly. Surely plants could not be dangerous. Our plant life has also evolved to survive in this hostile environment, Li Tay said. Many species are actively poisonous to prevent being eaten. Images of colorful mushrooms appeared in the hologram. They looked beautiful and harmless, but Li Tay's explanation changed everything. These fungi produce toxins that can kill a human in hours. Some cause organ failure. Others attack the nervous system and cause hallucinations before death. The plant people in the assembly began rustling their leaves in distress. Their own species had evolved in harmony with other plant life, sharing nutrients and growing together peacefully. Many of our trees defend themselves by producing chemical compounds that irritate or poison animals, Li Tay continued. Some launch seeds at high velocity as projectiles. Others drop heavy branches when they detect movement below. The hologram showed carnivorous plants that trapped and digested insects and small animals. Venus flytraps snapped shut on their prey, while pitcher plants dissolved anything that fell into their acidic chambers. Even our flowers can be deadly, Li Tay said, showing images of bright, beautiful blooms. These attractive colors often indicate the presence of powerful toxins designed to discourage animals from eating them. Dr. Nixala's energy form was now flickering weakly. But how can any species develop intelligence while surrounded by so much danger? Li Tay paused and looked around the great hall at thousands of beings who had evolved on safe, predictable worlds. That is the fundamental error in your classification system, he said. You assume that dangerous environments prevent the development of intelligence. The reality is exactly the opposite. He activated a new hologram showing human evolutionary development. My species developed advanced tool use because we needed weapons to defend against predators. We developed complex language because we needed to coordinate survival strategies. We developed science and technology because our environment constantly presented new challenges that required innovative solutions. The assembly hall was completely silent as delegates tried to process this information. Every human child grows up learning to assess risk, solve problems under pressure, and adapt to changing conditions, Li Tay continued. What you call survival challenges, we call normal childhood development. Commander Veltar's 4 arms trembled slightly. Are you saying that dangerous worlds produce more intelligent species than safe worlds? I am saying that your classification system assumes causation that runs in the wrong direction, Li Tay replied. You believe that safe worlds allow intelligence to develop. Our experience suggests that challenging worlds require intelligence to develop. He gestured to the holographic display showing Earth's countless dangers. Every problem our planet presented forced our ancestors to become smarter, more creative, and more adaptable. We did not evolve despite living on a death world. We evolved because we lived on a death world. The implications of this statement rippled through the assembly like a shockwave. If humans were right, then everything the Galactic Council believed about habitable worlds was wrong. Ambassador Korthek managed to speak through his crystalline structure's frantic chiming. But surely your species is unique. Surely no other intelligent life could develop under such extreme conditions. Li Tay consulted his tablet and smiled slightly. Actually, he said, that brings me to my final point. Li Tay stood quietly at the central platform while thousands of alien minds struggled to process what they had just learned. The great assembly hall felt different now. The confident atmosphere of scientific certainty had been replaced by something much more unsettling. Delegates who had been ready to vote on obvious safety measures now faced the possibility that everything they understood about life in the galaxy was wrong. Commander Veltar was the first to find his voice. "Ambassador Li Te," he said carefully, "your presentation has raised serious questions about our proposed classification system. However, surely your species must be a unique exception. The mathematical probability of intelligent life developing on such a dangerous world must be extremely small." Dr. Nix Allah's energy form pulsed weakly as she tried to maintain her scientific composure. "Yes, the data must represent an anomaly. Our models have been tested across thousands of worlds and millions of years of galactic history." Li Te nodded, respectfully. "Your models have indeed been tested extensively. However, they have only been tested on worlds that produced species capable of achieving space travel. This creates what scientists call selection bias." He activated his tablet and the holographic display changed to show a galaxy-wide map with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. "Your surveys have only examined worlds where you found spacefaring civilizations," Li Te explained. "You then concluded that these safe, stable environments must be necessary for intelligence to develop, but you never surveyed the dangerous worlds to see what might be living there." The implications of this statement began to sink in. The Galactic Council had spent thousands of years cataloging garden worlds and meeting the peaceful species that evolved on them. They had avoided dangerous worlds entirely, assuming nothing intelligent could survive there. "My government has conducted preliminary surveys of 47 worlds that would qualify as Deathworlds under your classification system," Li Te continued. "We have detected signs of potential intelligent life on 39 of them." The assembly hall erupted in shocked conversations. Delegates turned to each other in dozens of different languages, all expressing the same disbelief. The idea that dangerous worlds might be filled with unknown intelligent species was overwhelming. Ambassador Korthek's crystal structure was chiming so rapidly it sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. "This cannot be possible. If intelligent species existed on these worlds, why have they not achieved space travel? That assumes space travel is the primary goal of intelligent species," Li Te replied. "Perhaps species that evolve on challenging worlds develop different priorities." He showed new data on the holographic display. "Some of the worlds we have surveyed contain species that appear to be highly intelligent, but have focused their development on different areas. Advanced biotechnology instead of mechanical engineering. Sophisticated social structures instead of individual achievement. Deep understanding of their local environment instead of expansion to other worlds." Dr. Nixala's form flickered with scientific curiosity despite her shock. "Are you suggesting that our definition of advanced civilization is too narrow?" "I am suggesting that your classification system is about to prevent first contact with potentially dozens of intelligent species," Li Te said. "If you mark their homeworlds as quarantined Deathworlds, the galaxy may never meet them." This possibility sent new waves of discussion through the assembly. The council prided itself on being inclusive and welcoming to all forms of intelligent life. The idea that they might accidentally isolate entire civilizations was deeply troubling. Commander Veltar used all 4 arms to call for order. "Ambassador Li Te, what do you propose we do with this information?" Li Te looked around the great hall at thousands of beings who represented the safest, most stable worlds in the galaxy. "I propose that the Council reconsider the fundamental assumptions behind this classification system." He activated a new presentation showing side-by-side comparisons of safe worlds and dangerous worlds. "Your species have achieved remarkable things by developing on stable, predictable worlds. You have created beautiful art, advanced mathematics, and peaceful societies. These are extraordinary accomplishments." Many delegates nodded, feeling somewhat reassured by this acknowledgement. "However," Li Te continued, "species that evolve on dangerous worlds develop different strengths. We become highly adaptable, innovative, and resilient. We excel at solving unexpected problems and surviving in hostile conditions. He showed images comparing galactic technology with human innovations. In the 50 years since joining the Council, human engineers have solved 17 technical problems that had stumped galactic scientists for centuries. We have developed new medical treatments, improved space travel efficiency, and created materials that can withstand extreme conditions. Dr. Nixala's energy form brightened with reluctant interest. Your species has indeed contributed significantly to galactic science in a remarkably short time. Because we approach problems differently, Li Te explained. When your species encounters a challenge, you study it carefully and develop elegant solutions. When humans encounter a challenge, we try dozens of approaches rapidly until something works. Both methods have value. Ambassador Korthek managed to control his chiming long enough to ask, "What specific changes do you propose to our classification system?" Li Te touched his tablet and displayed a new framework. Instead of classifying dangerous worlds as uninhabitable, classify them as specialized environments that may support specialized forms of life. Instead of quarantining them, establish careful protocols for making contact with any intelligent species that might live there. The proposal made sense, but it also meant admitting that the Galactic Council's approach to exploration had been fundamentally flawed for thousands of years. Furthermore, Li Te continued, the galaxy would benefit from including Deathworld species in its scientific and exploration efforts. We can survive in environments that would kill most Council species. We can solve problems that stable world thinking cannot address. Commander Veltar considered this carefully. You are suggesting a partnership between Safe World species and Deathworld species? I am suggesting that diversity makes us all stronger, Li Te replied. Your species bring wisdom, patience, and deep knowledge. Deathworld species bring adaptability, innovation, and resilience. Together, we could explore parts of the galaxy that neither group could handle alone. The assembly hall had grown quiet as delegates contemplated this new perspective. The vote they had been prepared to take, a simple approval of obvious safety. Measures had become something much more complex. Dr. Nixala floated closer to the central platform. Ambassador Li Te, if we proceed with your suggestions, how do we safely make contact with potentially dangerous Deathworld species? Li Te smiled. Very carefully. But remember, we are also dangerous Deathworld species, and you made contact. With us successfully. Perhaps the key is approaching such encounters with respect rather than fear. He gestured to the human delegation sitting quietly in their section. My people have been members of this council for 50 years. We have never threatened anyone, never started conflicts, and never used our Deathworld origins to intimidate other species. We simply want to contribute to galactic civilization, while learning from your wisdom. Commander Veltar looked around the assembly hall. This debate has revealed that our understanding of habitability and intelligence may be incomplete. I propose that we postpone the vote on the classification system until we can study Ambassador Li Te's data more thoroughly. The suggestion received immediate support from delegates throughout the hall. The confidence they had felt earlier was gone, replaced by scientific curiosity and the realization that the galaxy might be far more complex than they had imagined. As the assembly began to adjourn, Li Te gathered his materials and prepared to return to his seat. Dozens of delegates approached him with questions about Earth, human evolution, and the possibility of other Deathworld species. Dr. Nixala was among the first to reach him. Ambassador Li Te, she said, her energy form pulsing with excitement. Would your government be willing to collaborate on surveys of these dangerous worlds? Absolutely, Li Te replied. We would be honored to work with galactic scientists to expand our understanding of life in the universe. As Li Te walked back to the human section, conversations erupted throughout the Great Hall. Representatives who had never paid attention to the small human delegation, now wanted to learn everything about Deathworlds survival and adaptation. The debate on Deathworlds had indeed gone silent when the human raised his hand. But what emerged from that silence was something far more valuable than a simple classification system. It was the beginning of a new understanding of what life in the galaxy could achieve when different types of worlds learned to work together. The humans had not just challenged the Council's assumptions. They had opened doorways to entire civilizations that had been hiding in plain sight on worlds the galaxy had been too afraid to explore.